Hey guys, how's it going? Marine King here. This is the Grand Tournament Review Part 2. Now, all the cards have been released, and now that I've had a chance to look at all of the cards, I thought it'd be a pretty good time to give my review and a few predictions on which cards I think are going to be good and which cards I think are going to be not so good. And in this video, I'm only going to cover the Mage cards and the Paladin cards. So let's start right in. First up, we have the Secret Effigy, the 3 mana secret. When a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion with the same cost. Well, when I look at this card, what I get out of this is that you're giving it Death Rattle to a minion, and you're just kind of turning it into something sticky. I think that's really the main issue about this. It's the problem with Effigy is that you're not really getting great value out of what you summon, and the reason why is because, first of all, there's the randomness, but that's not even the main problem. The main problem is that you don't get value off the battle cries, and battle cries in this game mean so much. And the other issue is that the other half of the time, charge is the other mechanic that you get a lot out of with this mana cost ratio thing. And the problem is, as you know, secrets will not trigger on your own turn. They trigger on the enemy's turn. So with Effigy, at first glance, a lot of people were like, oh my god, this is really great, this is insane. I'm going to play this really high mana cost minion, and I'm going to play the secret, and then when they destroy it, I'm going to have this really high mana cost minion right back again. But in my opinion, I don't think it's going to work out that great because of the fact that you're missing the battle cry, you're not going to have the charge, and then you're not going to have enough control over what is happening because of the fact that secrets will trigger on your opponent's turn. The other issue about it is that a lot of secrets, a lot of mage secrets are there to keep you ahead, either on tempo or to save you from aggression. So some of the ones to save you from aggression would be like the ice blocks, the ice barriers, and then some of the ones that help you to stay ahead on tempo are things like counter spell, things like mirror image, duplicate. These are the things that help you to stay, not duplicate, the mirror entity is what I meant to say. These are the things that help you to stay ahead on tempo. A card like Effigy, they could pretty easily play around that. I mean, you cast a spell, the first thing that they do if they attack your face and not attack a minion, then they have a lot of control over the fact that they're not really helping you to gain that tempo. And then when they do decide to trigger it, you may not get really a great result off of that. So for Effigy, I'm going to give that card a 6 out of 10 rating. I think it's I think people are going to experiment around with it a little bit, and it might see a little bit of play, but overall I don't think this card is going to find its way into any really strong decks. The 2 mana Fallen Hero, the 3/2, your hero power deals 1 extra damage. Well, where I take issue with this card is that, first of all, let me start by saying the stats are not great. A 3/2 for 2 mana is just okay. There's nothing great about that. Now, this card text is also okay. It's not really that great. And the reason why it's not that great is because everything is comparison. Now you have to compare the Fallen Hero to Knife Juggler. And in most instances, in almost every instance, Knife Juggler is just superior to Fallen Hero because Knife Juggler has a lot of potential to do a lot of damage. Fallen Hero does not really by itself have that much potential to do that much extra damage. Unless you've done some serious buffing of your hero power, unless you have some other cards in play, just dealing 1 extra damage off your ping is useful, but not so useful that you need to set it up with a card like this and risk losing that tempo with a 3/2 that essentially does nothing. Now, the other place I take issue with this card is that a lot of times you want to play 2 mana minions on turn 2 or turn 1 or something like that with a coin. If you do that, then on the next turn you have a choice to make that you either have to use your hero power or you're going to want to play a minion, and most of the time you'll probably want to play a minion. If you are using your hero power, you're probably against the aggro deck. If you're against an aggro deck, you probably don't need the 1 extra damage off of this card text. So this card is a little bit awkward in what it does. For this card, I think making it a 2/3 might have been a little better than making it a 3/2. Now it for sure dies to anything and everything, and that card text, it's just a matter of, do you really want to spend the extra mana to get the 1 extra damage off your ping? My guess is you probably don't. I don't think I would run that card, and I don't really think a lot of other people are going to be hankering to run this card either. I would rate this a 4 out of 10. Coldarra Drake, 6 mana, 6/6. You can use your hero power any number of times. It's a dragon, and it's 6/6. Well, that's fair stats for a dragon, but just being fair isn't really that great. That's not good enough anymore. You need to be better than fair. So in terms of stats, it's just okay. In terms of card text, I don't really think it's that great, to be honest. Use your hero power any number of times. Well, you know what? That'd be great if it wasn't 2 mana every time you want to use your hero power. So to actually get real value out of this, you're going to be spending a lot of mana. I mean, let's theoretically suppose you were going to use your hero power twice. Now you have a 10 mana situation, and what have you really accomplished? Without the use of any extra cards, because we shouldn't rate cards that way. We shouldn't rate cards like, oh, you know, what if we have the Fallen in the field or something like that. No. Let's look at this card and let's think about what we can do with this card. Here's what you're paying. Theoretically, you're paying 8 mana to play a 6/6 that deals 1 damage. I just want that to sink in for a moment. You can get that from a 1 mana archer. Or you can pay 10 mana and do a staggering 2 damage. Split to your choosing. That's not really that great. So this card doesn't really excite me that much. I don't like the implications of using your mana on hero powers. It's just not good. And unlike spells, you can't do things like Sorcerer's Apprentice to reduce the spell damage. You can't even to reduce spell cost. So you can't reduce the cost of your hero power. I mean, it's just not that great. And then the other issue is that a lot of cards in Mage decks synergize with spells, not with your hero power. So, you know, the Drake, it's very average. I would give it a 5 out of 10. Nothing there is really exciting me. Polymorph Boar, 3 mana spell, transform a minion into a 4/2 Boar with charge. Well, this card I like a little more than the previous cards that I just mentioned. This card excites me because of the fact that it has the versatility. Now, the first thing a person might be thinking is, oh my god, you know, if I transform the enemy's minion into a boar, now I have to deal with this 4/2. Wasn't it so much better to use Polymorph for a 1/1? It's just 1 mana cost more. Well, here's the thing that a lot of people may be missing. Yes, you can use this offensively to turn someone's Tyrion into a boar and then kill it, but the real power of this card comes from the fact that really, in many ways, you attack with a minion you already had on the field, then turn that minion into a 4/2 boar, go charge. What you've really done is you've spent 3 mana on a spell that dealt 4 damage and it just transformed your minion, and it might even be better. So if you're playing this opens up the possibility for a new type of burst deck, something where you're focusing on chipping down the enemy's HP, and then you have cards that really stick to the board, like Hunted Creeper, and you know you're going to be able to transform any part of that into a Polymorph Boar at any time, and you're going to have the 4 instant damage, and then the enemy's going to have to deal with that 4/2 or get hit again. So the fact that you can use this both offensively, defensively, let's say you're running an aggro deck, you could use this card to go through someone's taunt, or you could use this card to deal 4 instantaneous damage to a target. I think the flexibility is what makes this card great, and I can definitely see where this card is going to find its way into a really strong. This is going to be a really strong staple into some new type of aggression mage decks that may surface. So I would rate this card as a 7 out of 10. I think it's quite decent. And the best card of the set. Dalaran Aspirant. 4 mana, 3/5, gain spell damage +1. What can I say? This card is very boring. And I don't think it's going to see much play. Soot Spewer didn't see much play. Why did Soot Spewer not see much play? It was a 3/3 mech, and it had the spell damage +1 as well. Well, you know what? It's not going to see much play because, first of all, a 3/5 for 4 mana isn't that great anymore. This has to stand up to other powerhouses at the 4 mana slot, and we have good stuff at the 4 mana slot. Why play this? Why play this? It has the same stats as a Shield Master. Why would you play this? Who really likes spell damage that much that you will risk losing tempo by playing a slightly weaker minion to get spell damage? It's just not that great. So this card is kind of boring, and I don't think it's going to find its way into many decks. I don't think it's going to be seen any more commonly than Soot Spewer was, and for that reason, I'd give it a 4 out of 10, just because, why run this? It's a little bit worse than what's already out there. It doesn't make sense to me. Arcane Blast, deal 2 damage to a minion. The spell gets double damage from, or rather I should say double bonus from spell damage. So for those of you who don't know exactly what this card means, what they're saying is that if you have, that this deals 2 damage. If you have a minion on the board and it has +1 spell damage, then you're actually not getting +1 on this, you're getting +2. So that means you get 4 damage out of this spell. Or if you have +2, means you get now +4. That means you're getting 6 damage out of this spell. Now, where I take issue with this card is, at first when I saw this card, I said, yes, great, this is wonderful, this is great. But actually, the problem with Arcane Blast is that you can only target a minion. So the fact that you can only target a minion really limits what you can do. The things that you would want to do with this type of spell, you probably would want to save this for some surprise burst damage to face in a lot of cases. The fact that you can only target minions kind of hurts a little bit. And the fact that it gets double bonus from spell damage is pretty much irrelevant, because there's not enough minions in the game that are so great that you even would want to run spell damage. You know, Dalnos, a couple other things come to mind, but basically the chances of you having spell damage on the board is pretty slim. So this card, it's okay. You know, I give it 6 out of 10. Probably won't see that much play, but it might see a little play here and there. Spellslinger, add a random spell card to each player's hand. I've never been crazy about these types of cards that have an equal offset to both sides, you know, where it gives you parity. The double drawbacks, or rather the double benefits, you share it with your opponent. I've never been crazy about that. And most other people aren't either, which is why you rarely see cards run that have these types of drawbacks of giving your enemy either some type of advantage on card draw, or giving them some kind of advantage, like you know, like the Grove Tender. I don't think that this particular card is really going to see that much play, because of the fact that, for one thing, it's so unpredictably random, and where normally that would help you only, like with Unstable Portal, now it has the potential to help your enemy, and I think that that's not going to appeal to most people. What you're really looking at are the specs. 3/4 for 3 is okay. There was a time when that was amazing, but let's be realistic. Today, that's just okay, not that great. So, you know, I really am not that crazy about the mutual benefit here on this card. I give it a 6 out of 10 though, because at least spells are a little better in the hands of a mage than other classes, but still, you know, it doesn't excite me that much. I wouldn't be hankering to play this card. Flame Lance, oh, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. A lot of people out there in the community have been talking about how bad this card is. They're right. Why would you want to pay 5 mana to deal 8 damage to a minion when you can pay 4 mana and have a much more superior removal in Sheep, aka the Polymorph? Well, I can tell you, you wouldn't. There's almost no instance where you would rather deal 8 damage to a minion rather than just turn it into a 1/1 for 4 mana. To me, this card is nothing but a filler for the Grand Tournament in general. I don't know why they printed it. It's just bad. People already are apt to not even use Polymorph, because even that's a little too expensive of a removal, with the meta being as aggressive and fast paced as it is. Why they would make a 5 mana card that deals 8 damage, that kind of baffles me. You won't see this played very much. I give it a 3 out of 10, and even that's being gracious, to be honest. There's nothing more to see here. We won't ever be discussing this card again. Rhonin. And it's the legendary 8 mana 7/7. Well, the stats are terrible for 8 mana. That's one thing I can tell you right off the bat. And the ability is pretty good, actually. Add 3 copies of Arcane Missiles to your hand. Now that part, that's exciting. The problem is that it's a death rattle. Death rattle. That's the problem. This card text should have been a battle cry, so that you could have played Rhonin and had a lot of control over doing things with those Arcane Missiles. With the death rattle, now the enemy has so much control, You have the 7/7 stats, which is really bad right now, and it's going to continue to be bad until Big Game Hunter goes away. And Big Game Hunter isn't going anywhere right now. So then you're paying 8 mana, which in my opinion, this card should have been costed as 7. I think that 8 was a bit heavy for a 7/7 that has this card text. Arcane Missiles are pretty cool early game, but they're not that cool late game, if you know what I mean. So it's really not the best time. If you think about the fact that you're at turn 8 and up, is it really the best time to have Arcane Missiles? Probably not. So even though the card, it looks cool, Rhonin looks cool, but Rhonin gets like 4 out of 10 from me. I wouldn't play it. I don't think it's going to see much play. So overall, that's all the Mage cards. I would say overall Mage got mediocre cards from the Grand Tournament. It isn't really exciting me too much. Most of what they got, I would definitely say this was below average and probably inferior mostly to what's already out there. I don't see a whole lot of reason that players would want to switch from the current Mage decks to start getting into this stuff. I just don't see enough here that really is blowing me away. I think there's some potential to do some things with the Boar Polymorph, but aside from in some type of aggro decks, but aside from that, I don't think a lot of people are going to be excited to run most of those cards. So now we move on to the Paladin cards. The Tusker Jouster, 5 mana, 5/5. Reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, restore 7 health to your hero. I like this card. This is kind of the new, in my opinion, this is the answer to them probably wanting people to have access to a Guardian of Kings without that 7 mana cost, because the Guardian of Kings is just a little too pricey actually for people to run. That's why Guardian of Kings isn't run anymore. This card, of course, is the battle cry depends all upon a joust. Now, if you are playing this type of card, though, that means you're not playing an aggro deck. You're probably playing a control deck. And the chances are fairly high that you will win that joust if you are against an aggro deck. Now, if you're losing this joust, you might be against another control deck, in which case you probably didn't need that 7 restore on your hero so much, because that type of enemy would be more focused on your board and care less about your face. Therefore, I feel that this is a win-win situation, because if you're winning the joust, you're against an aggro deck, you need the 7 restore to your face, and that's going to be really great. If you're against another control deck, who cares if you lose or win the joust. 5/5 for 5, very solid. This is like some next level Shield Maiden right here. I like this card. I think that it's a real nice card, real solid, great stats for what it does. 5/5 for 5 is great with this card text, and yeah, I like it. I think it's really solid. It has a nice solid place in a well-rounded sort of mid/late game control-ish deck. I give this 7 out of 10. Thumbs up. Argent Lance, Battle Cry. Reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, durability +1, 2 mana. It's garbage. There's like little more to say there. Why is it garbage? Oh, because of this. The Battle Cry would have been better if it worked on the attack. But who wants a 2/3 with Paladin? That's not good. You want to deal 3 damage, not 2 at 2 mana. That's awkward. There's going to be a lot of things that you won't be able to kill like this. And you would have wanted 3 damage. giving it more durability is worthless to you, especially when you consider the fact that most Paladin decks run a lot of other weapon cards, so you'll probably be breaking this weapon before you even use that last durability. And who would want to anyway? You know, really? 3 durability with 2 damage? You don't want that. This is not good. I give this card a 2 out of 10. Warhorse Trainer. 3 mana, your Silverhand recruits have +1 attack. 2/4. Well, the stats are decent enough. 2/4 is fine for 3 mana. That's become pretty standard now. You know, this statistically can be compared to Imp Gang Boss. It can be compared to the Flame Waker, etc. So the stats are okay. The card text is fairly good. In fact, it can be really good, especially when you consider the fact that not only is there muster for battle, but now there's also a neutral card that allows you to produce Silverhand recruits. So the chances are fair that you would have 1 or more Silverhand recruits at the time that you play this. Now, the great thing about this card is that the Silverhand recruits, they always have +1 attack so long as this is on the field. So that's the good thing. That's the difference between something like this and something like Dark Iron Dwarf. I think that this does have a good place in decks that run muster for battle. And I like the card. It's fair. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I think that's a pretty solid card. Above average. Murloc Knight. 4 mana, 3/4, inspire summon a random Murloc. Now this type of card was meant specifically for the Murloc Paladin. Murloc Paladin is something that used to be viable, or people used to try to make it viable long ago. My fear is that Murlocs have been bad, though, for so long now, and I don't think that one new card is going to make Murlocs better. So this card really won't see play for that reason. But, having said that, as a card, just looking at this card, it's great. It's a great card. 3/4 might seem bad for 4 mana, but for a Murloc, being the way they are, being the way that they build upon one another and synergize together, that's fine. It couldn't be more stats for a Murloc. And that card text is great, because in Murloc decks you have a lot of times leftover mana because you're not having that much card draw, and this would allow you to still get some value and produce things even without the card draw. So this, if you were to run a Murloc deck in Paladin, 2 of this card would be an auto include for sure. And really, I like the card. The card itself is a 7 out of 10. But will it see play? Probably not, because people aren't going to want to play Murlocs in general, because Murlocs are bad. Silla Champions, give a minion +3 attack and Divine Shield, 3 mana. It's okay. You know, this basically has to be used in more of an aggressive deck. Has to be used in something like Shakaden. But the thing is, spending 3 mana on this type of buff may prove to be not that efficient, because a lot of times that's kind of not how Shakaden works. With Shakaden, you like to play a minion and then use that 1 leftover mana to do a blessing, and you give the +3 attack. or you get the Divine Shield from another minion. But the point about it is you play another minion. And like the Argent Protector, the fact that you're paying 3 mana and you're not getting another minion on the field, that's a problem. And I think that a lot of people are going to be apprehensive to run this card in their aggro decks. I would be too. And it has no place in any other kind of deck but an aggro deck. So the card could be worse, but it could be better. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Into the Coliseum, destroy all minions except each player's highest attack minion. This card is a very situational card, like most epics. It's very situational and it's very niche. But overall, I'd say it's garbage. This is garbage. And the reason this is garbage is because you don't want to reduce your opponent's board down to their strongest minion. You want to clear their board. This type of card wouldn't even be good if it was 4 mana, much less 6 mana. This card might not even see play if it was 3 mana. Not only does it leave your opponent's strongest minion, but it also kills your own minions, except for your strongest minion. So now we have such a finely niched card, and you know, how often do people really overcommit against the Paladin control anyway? You don't. And you know this isn't going to be run in an aggro deck. This is a control deck. So people already aren't going to overcommit just because of equality. So why go for Enter the Coliseum? It's bad. It's a 2 out of 10. Don't use that card. It's just bad. The Mysterious Challenger. Oh, this card I like. Now, you heard it here first. This card is, or maybe you didn't hear it here first, but you're hearing it from me anyway. I'm going to go on record as saying this card is crazy. This card is like Mad Scientist on steroids. Mad Scientist, I called it before Nax ever came out that it was crazy because of the fact that essentially it had okay stats for its mana cost, but the thing that sent it over the edge on value is the fact that it dug into your deck, draws a card, and then puts that card in play. Those are two different mechanics, drawing the card out and putting it into play, and that was way too good for 2 mana, and I still stand by that today. In my opinion, Mad Scientist to date is still a 3 mana card, at least for what it does. Well, let me tell you, the Mysterious Challenger, amazing. He does the same thing to the 9th. This guy puts the secret into all your secrets into play as soon as he hits the board. Battle Cry, that is crazy. That I don't think a lot of people have any idea the implications of throwing in possibly 3 secrets at once as soon as this guy hits the field. You know, this card, by in and of itself, being a 6/6 for 6 and having that card text, amazing. I give this card a 10 out of 10. It's absolutely amazing if you're going to run secrets. And see, there is the clause right there. The question is, will you run Paladin secrets? Well, now that's a whole nother story, because now you have to put 1 mana secrets into your deck, and as we all know, Paladin secrets, as a general rule, are not that great, including the new secret, which we're going to go on to next. The problem with Paladin secrets is that if you draw them when you were hoping to draw something meaningful and you're kind of low on cards, you're going to be wishing that you didn't have Paladin secrets in your deck. So is the Mysterious Challenger super great? Oh yeah, he's 10 out of 10. Are the secrets themselves being in your deck a great idea? Maybe not. So whether or not this guy sees play will be dependent upon whether or not people actually want to run secrets in their Paladin deck. And might I add that I probably would not. despite the fact that this card is insanely good. Competitive Spirit. When your turn starts, give your minions 1/1. Well, this is a new thing, and the reason I say this is a new thing is because this is the only secret that will trigger not on your opponent's turn, but on your turn. So that kind of broke the rule of secrets not triggering on your own turn. But it's, in my opinion, too situational and not enough benefit for what you're getting out of the deal. Plus 1/1 for 1 mana already wouldn't be good. Plus 1/1 to multiple minions for 1 mana would be, it'd be pretty decent. It'd be above average, but not crazy anyway. Now you're making a secret. Now you have to have things on the board for your next turn. I don't know. It seems a little iffish. I think that the setup required to make this work is maybe a little too situational. And even if you do manage to play a bunch of stuff on the board, I just don't think it's all that great of a situation here. So, Competitive Spirit, you probably would rather play some of the other Paladin secrets if you were going to run secrets. And the final card of the set, Eadric the Pure. 7 mana, 3/7, change all enemy minions attack to 1. Why? Why play this? We already have this card. It's called Elder Peacekeeper. And that is 3 mana, 3/3. That's efficient. Does the same thing essentially. This guy is a 7 mana, 3/7. Now that's not good. Or rather, I should say it's okay, but compared to the Outdoor Peacekeepers, you don't need it. This guy has no purpose here. The attack is way too low, frankly. Why run this guy for 3 attack when you can have the 3 mana Peacekeeper? And the other issue is change all enemy minions attack to 1. Well, because of the kind of game that HearthStone is, first of all, it's highly unlikely that the enemy is going to have a lot of high damage, more than 1 high damage minion on the field. They're probably not going to have a bunch of high damage minions on the field. So most of the time when you play this, you're going to be playing it to take 1 minion's attack and put it down. As far as the other minions, they'll probably be, if there are other minions, they'll probably be small ones. And if that's the case, you don't want to put their attack to 1, you want to kill them. And anyone who has, dealt with Zulocks and dealt with synergy decks and mid-range decks and so on and so forth, you know that you don't want to keep crap on the board. You want to clear your enemy's crap. And all this guy does is keep the same crap there, but reduce the attack down to 1. And that does not appeal to me. It probably will not appeal to a lot of other people. And although this card might have had a pretty decent place in another type of class, it's just unnecessary in the Paladin. We already have enough of this. And might I add, the card that Paladin really needed was something that synergized with lowering the attack of your enemy's minions. One of the problems right now with Paladin is that this mechanic they have where you can lower damage down to 1, they seem to have a bunch of cards that can do that. But the problem is nothing synergizes with that. Yeah, the only synergy you can make is your own synergy with the Stampeding Kodo. That's the only thing that you can really synergize with taking the enemy's minions attack and putting them at 1. there is no reason, no combination, nothing really great you can do with Paladin with these 1 damage enemy minions. I mean, if this were Priest, you could say, oh, you know, I can do all this cool stuff now. I can, you know, I can take it with Cabal Shadow Priest, and, you know, I can use Shadow Madness. I can do all these things. But with Paladin, it's like, who cares? So this this minion, this legendary, is just unnecessary. It's a 4 out of 10, I would give it. And that's the last Paladin card. So overall, as far as the Paladin set is concerned from the Grand Tournament, I think the cards are okay. I think most of them are decent. But the problem is they're just not the cards that Paladin really needed. There were other things that Paladin needed. Spot removal. Something that probably synergized with all this, taking the HP down to 1 and taking the attack down to 1. There were many things that they could have introduced for Paladin to get back on the map, and I felt that they gave Paladin some cards that were decent, but like, why? You know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why they gave them a lot of the cards they did. For instance, like the Murloc card and, you know, the Enter the Coliseum. They just were not the cards that Paladin needed as a class. And my fear is that Paladin, which is in a pretty bad spot right now, isn't going to get any better with the Grand Tournament. I actually was kind of hoping for something a little bit more, especially on the Legendary. I mean, this is the textbook definition of we didn't need that right now. Seriously, the one thing Paladin was not in need of was another way to take the enemy's minions to HP and put them at 1. Like, we already have humilities and peacekeepers, and why this guy? So, you know, it's they made it okay. So thanks for watching part 2 of the Grand Tournament review. I am going to be doing 2 more classes on the next part, so tune in and catch that. Thanks.